I might cook some spaghetti, put some tomato sauce in it, stick it on my head, and pretend it's brains coming out.
Eavesdroppin.
Well, hello, Michelle, and welcome to Eavesdroppin' to all you lovely listeners.
They're eavesdroppers, Geordie. Eavesdroppers.
That's correct. Sorry, you're not listening. You're eavesdropping. It's semantics, for God's sake.
And we love that you listen. Love it.
Yeah. It's okay by me. Is it okay by you, Michelle?
Absolutely. They want to eavesdrop.
You're easy breezy.
I know.
Yeah.
You know,
who cares?
I'm not going to be talking about nudes this time, but yes, they can overhear anything they want.
You talk about nudes a lot, you know, because I went back to listen to an episode that I sent to a friend of mine who asked, have we seen the Netflix Sweet Bobby TV show? And I was like, no, but we did a podcast on it 2 years ago, actually, based on the podcast.
Yes, we did. Exactly.
So I re-listened to it, Michelle. You're talking about bloody nudes again.
Am I?
Yeah. Because it's the catfishing episode, that's why.
Oh, okay. Well, do you know what? If it's not nudes, it's D's, it's the P, it's
the dirty
V.
algebra makes a return. Yes, I think we're getting to grips with you, Michelle. I did notice, though, in 2022, I was a lot more shouty and high energy. I think I've calmed down. It must be age.
I've noticed too that you've changed your
Mellowed.
style a little. Yes, it's a quieter style than what we started with. I would definitely agree. But Geordie, I do believe we haven't introduced ourselves.
Oh, shoot. I'm Geordie.
And I'm Michelle.
Thank God you told everybody, Michelle.
I know. Here we are talking to each other like everyone knows, but those new listeners, they don't know what they're in for.
They haven't got a clue, poor you. But don't worry, you'll catch on.
You will.
We talk about all sorts of things. Real life, true crime, supernatural, and telerecs.
We do. We have the chitty chatty.
We've got a telerec actually from a long-time listener. Love you long time, Charlene. She's great because she often tells us things to research, as do other listeners. But a telerec from Charlene is something that I've been watching for quite a while because I am a therapist. It's called Couples Therapy. It's up to season 4 now, so get binging, everybody. It's like the flip of Married at First Sight, UK, which Michelle, myself, and another friend, Jay, are doing another podcast on right now. Look, I've put too many things in there. A lot of tabs open there, Michelle. Sorry.
Yes, we do another podcast called Show Dumpin'. So get on over to that. But back to the telerecs.
Yeah. Couples Therapy. Have you seen it?
No, I have not.
Oh, you must.
Is it good? I mean, worth watching?
It's amazing. Yeah. It's a real life insight into couples therapy. You've got Orna, the therapist, and her lovely little doggy in her beautiful New York office. And it starts during lockdown.
Okay.
And there's 3 or 4 couples each season that you follow their journey. And then you get to see her in supervision as well. So that's where the counsellor becomes not the client, but they bring their clients anonymously. Well, these ones aren't anonymous because they've obviously signed a waiver to have their dirty washing aired, a bit like they do on Married at First Sight.
I know.
But less dramatic. Although it is interesting to watch some of the fight styles, to watch some of the defensive reactions of various couples. You've got same-sex couples. You've got polyamorous couples. It's very interesting.
Wow, it's a very inclusive show by the sounds of it.
Yeah.
Well, you know, we had another telerec too.
What was it?
From our beautiful white witch, Safka.
Yes.
She emailed and she said, Shari, who is also another one of our gorgeous eavesdroppers.
Yes.
She said, Shari and I watched The Substance.
Oh, I've heard that's rough as.
Oh, she says, I swear it has put me off cosmetic procedures for life! Exclamation
Okay.
mark. Absolutely bonkers movie, but Demi Moore is incredible.
Right. I don't think I can watch that. I was looking into that yesterday with some colleagues, and I thought, no, body horror, too much for me. Also, Long Legs with Nicolas Cage looks too disturbing for me as well. I don't think I'm a horror fan. I had a voice note from the other person you just mentioned, long-time listener, Shari, friends with Safka. And she said that they were chatting about the news-dropping episode a couple of weeks ago. Shari shared her early memories of being 2 years old and having a bumblebee in the caravan on holiday, which was terrifying for her, and then an adult-sized womble encounter, and of puking on her red mittens. All of these things.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, all of this happening whilst in transition. She hastened to add that being in transition means that you're in nursery school in New Zealand. That's what they call it.
Okay.
They have other words for things in New Zealand, like jandals instead of flip-flops or thongs. What else is there? There's some other things
Fush
that are
and
different.
chop.
Fush and chops. That's just a pronunciation.
Fush and chops, because I had a New Zealand boyfriend and we went to see his family and they were eating fush and chops. And I was like, what the fuck? Fish and chips. They flip all their vowels around, don't they?
Yeah, and some words are different, like transition or nursery or kindergarten, as we would call it. Going back to Shari, she also remembers a child telling her in transition that her mum was going to put her in an oven.
What?
I know. How dark is that?
That is. And the reason, I guess, she got in touch is because you talked about a woman who remembered everything.
That's correct.
Everything.
From the minute she was born.
That's why Shari's gotten in touch with us, for anyone who hasn't perhaps listened to that episode. So very interesting. I mean, I don't think I have memories from that early.
I do. I do have early memories as well. They're hard to kind of make out because, again, you're non-verbal and I think it's difficult to kind of understand. But going back to the post bag, Michelle, it's quite full this week because also Ray got in touch. He saw an attractive postwoman and he wondered if we'd seen Dan, our hot postie, but I had to say no. Dan, where are you? I've barely seen hide nor hair of you. I've only seen Kevin, your buddy. Where's Dan?
What's happened?
Is he on long service leave? I don't know. Maybe we just keep missing each other.
Well, I hope it's that, and I hope it's not something darker because, we did talk...
Oh, don't say that.
We did talk about posties getting murdered, posties being murderers.
Well, that was actually a story from Dan. Dan contributed that one.
I know. But also, I mean, hopefully he hasn't, broken a leg or a dog...
Don't break a dog, Dan.
Jumped out at him on his round.
What?
So please, Dan, get in touch. We miss you.
We do miss you. Get in touch. Patreon news, Michelle. We have something coming out in the month of October/November. It is exciting if you're an ABBA fan. And all you have to do is go over to patreon.co, whatever. Michelle will link it. And write, what's the name? Eavesdroppin. And pay a little entrance fee, buy us a little cup of coffee or a cup of tea, in Michelle's case, green tea. You can have access to extra content, the list of all our television recommendations, videos, fun things to while away the hours. And, as Michelle previously mentioned and I alluded to, we have our side hustle, Show Dumpin', which is a separate podcast, comes out every week.
Hopefully.
Check it out. Show Dumpin' No G. And that's on all platforms. Support us.
Hey, are you scared of the dark? How would you like it if we hit you up with hauntings and horror? Would you be too scared and scream it up the hoo-ha? And now we tell you all the supernatural stories of the world.
By the way, Michelle, happy Halloween.
Oh my
Happy
God.
Halloween.
Happy Halloweeny, weenie Halloweeny.
Frankenweenie.
Oh God. Thank you for the happy Halloween. I mean, I don't know if this is a scary TV rec or not from our lovely long-time listener, Kiss Apocalypse.
Yes.
He asked us, have we seen the 3 seasons of Future Man?
No.
I pissed myself watching it. Season 1 and 3 were the best. 2 wasn't as good as the others, but still okay.
I've never heard of that one.
No, me either.
Have you Googled?
No, but I'm going to when I link it up on the Patreon. But Future Man, it does sound like it could be a little bit scary. I don't know. But he says he pissed himself watching it, so maybe it's comedy. I know.
Okay.
I have to get on it.
I wonder if it's spooky ooky, Michelle. Are you dressing up this evening for Halloween?
Well, I might. I might cook some spaghetti, put some tomato sauce in it, stick it on my head and pretend it's brains coming out.
Is that an outfit that you've done in the past?
It's an outfit I've seen. My all-time best outfit was when I was Dead Ballerina.
That was a good one.
It was throat slashed. It's been on our socials,
media.
I believe. Yes, that was my absolute all-time favourite Halloween outfit. What's been yours?
I tend to not make too much effort, but my family and I are in France, so we're going to have our own little Halloween fun with Steve and Yannicka from Amsterdam.
Lovely.
we're all holidaying together in France. We don't believe this little village is going to have door knocking and candy handing out. So we're not going to risk it. We're probably just going to stay indoors, all dressed up. They're coming as Sandy and Danny from Greece.
Oh, dead, obviously.
We're the Addams family.
Oh, wonderful.
My husband will be Lurch, though. The husband won't be there. Gomez won't be there. Husband will be Lurch. And the children are
Wednesday and the other one.
And the fat one. My son's not too keen about being, what's his name?
I don't know.
Pudsey.
Oh, gosh. Okay.
Pugsley? Yeah. He's not keen on that.
No.
I'll send some photos.
Wednesday was always the one everyone wanted to be with her plats.
Everyone wants to be Wednesday.
Yes. Oh, that's exciting. Well, we'll have to pop some of those pics on the Patreon.
We will.
Yeah.
I have some spooky stories, though, to tell you just to get us in the mood for Halloween.
Go for it. I'm excited.
Well, I was thinking about graveyards. They're very Halloween, aren't they? Cemeteries. And as you know, our friend Christabel, who has been on this podcast, she recorded opposite one of the biggest London cemeteries. So I thought I wanted to do a little bit of a deep dive into the Kensal Green Cemetery in northwest London. But whilst doing that, I found out a lot of other things as well. Did you know that in the early 19th century, London's inner city parish churchyards were overpopulated, which resulted in decay, epidemics, and grave robbing?
Ew.
Plus more. I know.
Oh, God.
So in 1832, there were campaigns to construct 7 suburban cemeteries across the city, and that led to the creation of what's known as the Magnificent Seven.
Oh, okay.
Cemeteries.
I thought that was something else from a cowboy film.
It is, but they've also called these 7 cemeteries the Magnificent Seven. And any good goth worth their salt on a visit to London ought to seek them out. They are, number 1, I'm going to say Kensal Green Cemetery, which was built in 1832. It's in northwest London, and I pass this one twice a week when I go to work. Then there's Abney Park Cemetery, built in 1840. That's in Stoke Newington, northeast London. Then there's West Norwood Cemetery. I've been there many times for funerals, sadly. 1836 it was built, southwest London. Highgate Cemetery, built in 1839. That's in North London. Very bloody famous, and I've got more on that later. And my old local when I was living in southeast London, Nunhead Cemetery, built in 1840 in southeast London. That's where I used to live, and I trod on a dead rat in flip-flops once there. I think I've told you that story.
Oh, my God. Very appropriate, though, to have a little rat at a cemetery.
You need a rat in a cemetery. Then there's Brompton Cemetery, built in 1840 in West London. And finally, our 7th is Tower Hamlets Cemetery, built in 1841 in Bow, East London. So that's for the goths. I think Safka might be interested in that when she comes over to visit.
Oh, wonderful. Well, I've been to some of those cemeteries, London cemeteries, in the dead of winter when it's misty,
stunning,
and cold and rainy. They are absolutely incredible, but fucking a bit scary.
Can be scary.
I will say.
If you've ever been to Père Lachaise in Paris, where Jim Morrison and Oscar Wilde are laid to rest, Kensal Green is based on that one.
Yeah, I can see that. And I have been to that cemetery. It's a beautiful one.
What, Kensal Green?
No, the one in Paris.
Oh, okay. Well, I've got a London ghost story which is attached to Kensal Green Cemetery, which I'm going to quickly tell you before my main story. It's been verified by someone called the late Honourable Alec Carlisle, and it was told to Maud MC Fulks. That was my info. It's thought to have occurred in the early decades of the 20th century and involves a wealthy, well-known publisher who came from a humble background. The man in the story is known as L, the publisher, and he was wandering through Kensal Green Cemetery one day after attending a funeral when he found himself lost in the sprawling 72-acre Victorian graveyard. As I've said, it was one of the Magnificent Seven, and it was London's most fashionable burial ground at the time. Famous people who are buried in Kensal Green.
I'm sorry, I'm just laughing that a graveyard can be fashionable. It's like, oh, where are you going to be buried?
It's all the rage, darling. Oh, he's buried in Kensal Green, don't you know?
If you're not at Kensal Green, you're no one.
You're not dead at all. You're just a corpse. So in Kensal Green, you've got Charles Babbage, who invented the early computer, called the difference engine. I like that. And also Isambard Kingdom Brunel, who's responsible for a lot of the beautiful architecture in London, at least. You've got novelists Anthony Trollope, W.M. Thackeray and Wilkie Collins. You've got pre-Raphaelite painter W.C. Waterhouse and the news vendor and namesake of newsagents all over Britain, W.H. Smith.
Oh.
Elle found himself in an overgrown part of the graveyard and he began to feel a sad, heavy atmosphere growing around him. To distract himself, he sort of focused on all the tombstones and graves and read their inscriptions, and then one caught his eye. He looked a bit closer, had a moment of chill factor when he realised this grave belonged to an ex-lover of his called Elsie, who he ditched soon after his career took off.
Oh, poor old Elsie.
I know. She was penniless, lacking education. She was from the wrong side of the tracks, so it was a bit embarrassing for him to have her by his side when he was coming up in the publishing world. So he dumped her because it would affect his social status. He does remember hearing about her dying, but was too embarrassed to even send flowers, you prick.
What a fuckwit. She's a human being, just because she didn't have money.
Well, yeah. A pang of guilt came to him when he saw the state of her grave, though. Thank God. All there was a simple cross in a weathered state. It was on an angle, kind of thrown in as an afterthought. So he noted the grave number and thought about writing things and paying for a more dignified memorial for Elsie, not least because he thought somebody might connect the two, and when they saw the grave, they'll judge him, still thinking about himself. You fucker. He eventually found a way out of the cemetery, but once he got home, he couldn't shake this melancholic feeling from the day's experience. So he decided to phone a friend in the hope of being cheered up. In those days, you had to dial an operator, which he did so, and asked for what he thought was his friend's number. But as the operator put him through, Elle realised he'd actually requested Kensal Green.
Oh.
And the number was Elsie's grave number that he'd written down earlier.
Oh. I like where this story's going.
By the time he realised, somebody picked up the other end of the phone. The voice was familiar, but muffled, but it did become clearer. The other speaker, when hearing who it was at the other end of the phone, gasped with delight, and when they realised who was calling them, said, "Why, it's never you, darling." It was Elsie.
What?
She continued, "Do you want me? Of course I'll come." Elle tried to respond, but was shocked into silence. "I won't be long," Elsie said, "but I was very, very far away, darling, when you rang up."
So what's going on here?
Elle was horrified. He hung up and thought about running away from the house in fear. Somebody picked up this random number, which was her gravestone number. He called Kensal Green. The number given was her grave number.
Yes.
She answered. So instead of running away, he poured a large brandy and tried to calm himself down. Then he heard the front door of his grand house open and quietly close itself. The temperature in his house dropped, and Elle, who was in the library still where he'd made the phone call, heard footsteps stumbling and dragging down the hallway. Then there were 3 gentle knocks on the library door. At this point, Elle just passed out, only to be found by a friend or a butler, I'm not quite sure in this story, who later said he was found with bits of wet clay sticking to the carpet and his jacket, and the hall mat was a muddy mess as well. Dirty clay.
Oh my God.
Possibly from the cemetery.
Oh my goodness.
That's all I can find about that story. It's quite well known. It's out and about amongst the ghosty circles.
Spooky.
But really, Michelle, whilst researching that, something else popped across my vision, and it was a story about the Highgate Cemetery vampire. Do you want to know?
I've never heard of this. Yes. A vampire.
Okay.
I love it.
Well, this all takes place around the 70s, and actually it started in 1969. There's a man called David Farrant who was local to Highgate Cemetery. He was passionate about the paranormal, and when he heard about things happening in Highgate, he needed to know more. He heard that there'd been an old lady walking down Swains Lane, which goes through the graveyard, and she had seen a tall, dark figure with glaring eyes who seemed to be floating towards her as the air around her turned icy cold.
Oh my God.
Then he heard another story about an accountant who got lost in the cemetery who heard a clanging bell, so he walked towards it hoping to find his bearings. But instead, as the bell rang, he became aware of something behind him and noticed again temperature dropped.
It's a theme.
Then this accountant turned around and saw a tall, dark figure staring at him intensely before vanishing.
Oh my God. Scary stuff.
This was enough to intrigue Farrant, so he went on to investigate further, and he spent a night in the graveyard. Farrant said he suspected it might be an animal or someone dressed up at first, but he did see a figure about 7 feet tall floating above the ground with intense red lights for eyes. The area turned icy cold and he felt drained of energy. So he used a Kabbalistic incantation to repel the figure and it disappeared.
Who has a cabal phrase to throw at someone? Like, who has that? Just randomly.
Someone who's interested in the paranormal. He's immersed himself. He's like a Aleister Crowley type.
Oh, I guess he could just from memory, pluck something out.
Oh, yeah.
Be gone.
Oh, he's well in it. Yeah. I'll tell you more about him in a minute. In February 1970, Farrant wrote a letter to the local newspaper called the Ham and High. We've spoken about this paper before because it was included in the story that we did about the little children, the Hampstead hoax. Go back and search in our website. Farrant was asking if anyone had seen anything similar to the stories that he'd heard about with the glowing eyes, the figures around Highgate Cemetery in Swains Lane, and loads of people got back to him about their own tales. They varied in description, but always included a tall man wearing a hat, or a ghostly cyclist, or a lady dressed in white with a face grimacing through bars of a gate, or a person wading into a pond, or a pale gliding entity.
Okay.
There were also reports of the sounds of bells and voices calling.
A lot of ghosts hanging around there.
So Farrant never really claimed the dark figure he'd encountered was a vampire, but there was another paranormal expert called Sean Manchester, remember that name? He was certain that it was a vampire in Highgate Cemetery. Now, Manchester also contacted the Ham and High and was interviewed in February 1970. So now you've got two, Farrant and Manchester, paranormal investigators, all investigating strange goings-on in Highgate Cemetery and the surrounds. So in this article, it was called, Does a Vampire Walk in Highgate? Manchester said, a king vampire of the undead was buried in the graveyard. He said it was a medieval aristocrat from Romania and had been transported to England in the early 18th century and interred at Highgate Cemetery. He said that vampire had been awakened after people were performing satanic rituals in the cemetery, which was a separate thing going on.
Yeah, because we know about this. We know that it happened. And I mean, not that I've seen anyone actually do it, but even on the solstice, you see people doing rituals, not satanic necessarily, but...
Really?
Yeah, there's all sorts of things going on. London has a secret underbelly of this kind of thing. It's exciting and scary.
Similar to Farrant, Manchester also spoke to locals reporting paranormal activity. There was a teenage girl who saw the vampire, she thinks, in Swains Lane, and then she would experience nightmares and 2 wounds appeared on her neck.
Ooh.
Plus she had symptoms of anemia. So Manchester and the girl's boyfriend filled her room with garlic, crucifixes and holy water, and soon she felt better.
Aww.
Manchester also spoke to another young woman named Jacqueline who woke up in the night to find something cold clutching her hand, and then she noticed deep tears in her flesh where she tried to force her hand free.
Oh.
Jacqueline and her brother then both developed a fascination to the western side of Highgate Cemetery, which was more overgrown and where the suspected vampiric infection had occurred.
All right.
Once details about the Highgate vampire became public, people would contact Sean Manchester with the common sighting of this tall, dark being with blazing eyes. But he was pretty light on proof regarding his Romanian aristocrat theory. There was, however, solid evidence around the occult ceremonies that he believed was going on in the graveyard.
Yes.
Farrant, on the other hand, said he found discarded remains of satanic rituals in Highgate Cemetery, like black candles, satanic markings on tomb floors, and an inverted pentagram on a chapel-like tomb. Like Manchester, Farrant also believed the satanic rituals had awoken something. And he said that before these sightings in the 60s and 70s, there'd also been sightings reported in Victorian times.
What do you think of all this? I think people are seeing something.
Well, yeah, that's the thing. I'm not too sure. But Manchester says that even the police were aware of black magic practices going on in the cemetery, and they both had paranormal groups, okay? Like I said, they're a bit like Aleister Crowley. They've got their own little groups of paranormal fanatics. Both groups would use the cemetery for pagan or Wiccan rituals, and they said that they never interfered with graves or bodies. Meanwhile, you've got the Ham and High paper continuing to follow this vampire story with further interviews with Farrant and Manchester over the following months. So it's whipping up a bit of a frenzy. So I'm thinking, if you want to see a tall figure with glowing eyes in the middle of the night in the cemetery, you will, you know?
If you want to sell more papers, you'll keep this story running.
Exactly. And it did go on for months. Absolutely.
Yeah.
There was another article published in Ham and High on the 6th of March in 1970 where Farrant said he'd found dead foxes in the cemetery but couldn't work out how they had died. He thought a vampire might have been responsible and that they were using it for a food source.
suck the blood of a fox.
And then before you knew it, because it was in the papers, rumours that animals being found drained of blood with their throats ripped open were everywhere, spreading to national and international news.
Wow. That's the thing. It just catches like wildfire.
Yes, it does. And then you've got Hammer Horror, which was big in those days, filming Taste the Blood of Dracula, which was released in 1970, in Highgate Cemetery, which was a year before these incidents began. So the place had form, you know. It was a place for vampires.
Well, and it was also a film set.
Then on the night of Halloween 1968, in nearby Tottenham Park Cemetery, flowers had been removed from graves and arranged in circles with arrows pointing to a new grave, which was uncovered. A stake had been driven through the coffin lid and into the heart of a corpse.
No!
What a sight to find.
I would not want to see that. I would find that terrifying. No. And sacrilegious.
Yeah, absolutely. And then on the evening of Friday the 13th of March in 1970, there was a TV show aired on ITV featuring Farrant, Manchester and others claiming to have seen supernatural figures around Highgate.
Friday the 13th.
And it went live from outside of Highgate Cemetery. Within 2 hours of it airing, hundreds of vampire hunters turned up to Highgate Cemetery, climbing over the locked gates and walls, despite police trying to stop them. No vampires were caught, but some say, of course, that they saw this tall, dark figure with the glowing eyes. Also that evening, Manchester and his friends arrived at the entrance of a catacomb that Manchester had previously been guided to from a sleepwalking girl who had been troubled by the Highgate Vampire, and she showed symptoms similar to the other teenage girl. So apparently she led them to this catacomb. So they returned that night on Friday the 13th. They couldn't open the door, so they used a rope to descend into the catacomb through a window. There, they discovered a vault containing several coffins, one of which seemed crafted from almost black wood.
Oh.
So Manchester and his friends exorcised this casket using holy water and garlic and scattered salt around the area. A few months later, on Lammas Day, which is the 1st of August, and I didn't Google what it is, the charred, decapitated remains of a woman were found near the catacomb. And police again suspect this is something to do with a black magic ritual.
Oh, shit. That's really horrific.
Yes. Now, despite Manchester and Farrant being arrested and released on suspected fiddling about with graves and whatnot in Highgate, they became more invested in the Highgate Vampire. They were completely obsessed. Going back to what Manchester said when he found this black coffin, he said, it was only when we discovered in the putrid chamber of that tomb in August 1970 what we did and looked upon the horrific countenance of what was inside that we had absolute confirmation of what we were dealing with. He wanted to drive a stake through that body, but the group reminded him, because they'd been arrested, that it was a crime to interfere with a body, and talked him out of it.
Yes, sir.
So instead they did a ritual that included 7 crucifixes, 4 white candles and 7 cups of holy water in a ceremony carried out by 4 men and a woman to banish the spirit of evil using a Latin incantation.
So they thought they were doing a community service here.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly.
But also they're getting something out of it too.
Absolutely. But after that, because they'd messed about in there, officials from the cemetery bricked up the vault and left a crucifix and holy water inside.
Okay.
But it didn't remain bricked up for long, Michelle.
Oh, because I was going to say, I've never heard of any catacombs in London, but I mean, it makes sense. Yeah.
They're in all of them, I think.
Yeah.
All of the Magnificent Seven. Farrant and his group tried to communicate with a strange presence in Highgate Cemetery by also bringing along a medium, and at one point the entity grabbed the medium by the throat, which she later said felt as if she'd been overcome with darkness while someone was strangling her. And this made Farrant feel absolutely sure that this entity meant harm.
Oh.
No shit, Sherlock.
Yeah, I mean, if she's feeling strangled.
So he'd already been suspicious after hearing about people being pushed over in Swains Lane. So after research, he came up with the theory that the being wasn't a vampire, but a force of evil that had travelled along a ley line, which began at the columbarium, which is a part of the cemetery where the funeral urns are kept. And it ran across Highgate through 2 old pubs, Highgate Woods, and a block of flats, which was built over a nunnery.
Oh.
He has evidence of this, saying that there were disturbing supernatural activities found in all of these places, plus sightings of that fucking dark figure again, and reports of a horrifying sight that turned a pub manager's hair white. No one knows what it is.
Oh.
But his hair turned white overnight.
You hear stories of that. Is that really true? I don't know. How can your hair just turn white? They'd make a lot of money if you could do that, all the blonde girls.
Yeah, and also Manchester then, 3 years later, found that same black coffin in the cellar of an abandoned Gothic mansion, apparently. They suspected it had been moved there to avoid attention because people kept breaking into the catacomb where it was.
Yeah.
And they went there, they found it, and they said just as dawn was about to break, they took the lid off and saw the same thing they'd seen in Highgate in 1970. Now, this is now about 1974. And this time, the distorted face within, they didn't pierce him through the heart, remember? They had just done the ritual.
Yeah.
The face was even worse, more wild, more distorted. And Manchester said the burning fierce eyes were yellow at the edges with blood-red centres. The mouth was set in a cruel expression and the lips were drawn back. That just sounds like an ugly old corpse, really.
Hasn't it decayed? Like, do you know what I mean?
Yeah, even more.
Yeah. I mean, the stench, the worms... I don't know about this. I mean, it could have been embalmed, I guess.
No one talked him out of it this time. He got his stake and he went through that creature's heart. And what they saw was the body shell cave in and quickly turn filthy brown, and it became a sluggish flow of inhuman slime and viscera at the bottom of the casket. After that, he felt like they had to just burn it.
Oh, God. I'm surprised it's full of sludge after 4+ years. I mean, grim.
They said at the end, all that was left was scorch marks and some bones that they needed to grind down and cast into the four corners of the four winds of the earth, which to me is a belt and braces approach. But he said that he felt safe after that and said that Highgate Cemetery was purged. At this point, though, there's a feud going on between Manchester and Farrant, but I'm going to leave that there because that's enough of the Highgate bullshit. There is more to go on about these two guys, definitely. There's a duel, there's all sorts of things, and it's quite exciting, but maybe we can do that in another episode.
Oh, wow.
Because I'm going to leave it there with people thinking that Highgate Cemetery is purged of vampires. Or is it? There were still some more sightings in the 80s and 90s.
Well, you know, people love a vampire. People love a ghosty. So, I mean, it's full of dead people. How much can you really purge a graveyard?
Of vampires?
Yeah.
If you believe in vampires.
Let's be real. It could also just be a ghost.
Oh, let's be real. It's just a ghost then. Let's be realistic. Come on, let's get down to earth here.
Let's be real.
Don't be silly. It's not a vampire. It's just a ghost.
It's just a ghost, Geordie. It's a vampiric ride.
It's a ghost ride.
Hooby-dooby-doo, supernatural. Ghost is in a wall, supernatural. Poltergeist at all, supernatural. We are chatting supernatural.
This week, I went a little left field with my Halloween-related story. I'm going to talk about someone who died on Halloween. It's someone, if you're a kid of the 80s, you will definitely know who I'm talking about. This is, in a way, it's a Gone Too Soon. Worn Too Soon.
We haven't had one of those for a while.
I'm talking about River Phoenix.
Oh, River. Older brother of, what's his name?
Joaquin. Who I have met, listened to a previous podcast if you want to know about that. I don't know about you, but for me, I loved him when he was...
Who, River Phoenix?
Yeah, I did. You know, I always thought, you know, he was blonde, he was skinny, he was like kind of a clean-cut, Scandi version of Kurt Cobain, you know, with cheekbones. I just thought he was gorgeous. Yeah. He was our age, but he seemed so much cooler and more like hippie and worldly, and, you know, he made quirky film choices. I always thought he had depth, you know. I thought he was not just a fame chaser. And, of course, then it all went tits up. So today we are going back to Halloween 1993.
Ooh.
Geordie, I'm going to look at some music from that time. So I went to the top 40 for the 30th of October 1993 because, you know, this is set in USA. So I looked up the American charts. It was a load of shit, I tell you. Number 1, we have Dream Lover by Mariah Carey. What the fuck is that song? me either.
No.
I've never heard it. I went to YouTube, listened to it. I was still like, what
Didn't
the fuck is
remember
this? No. Then we had Meatloaf.
I would do anything for love. Yeah, I thought it might be that one. But
yeah, it's that one. Yeah. Then, I'm not joking, all that she wants is another baby.
God, that's every week.
Ace of Base. Swedish.
Ace of Base are on every week. Every time we do a throwback to the charts, they're in it.
I know. They were huge.
I wonder if they're going to have their own ABBA Ace of Base voyage next.
Maybe, because, you know, the Swedes getting in on that AI. And there was other shit that I'd never heard of. Basically, it just sucked. Unless you were in the Viper Room in LA.
Yes, the place to be in Hollywood.
But we'll get to that because I want to go back to basics with River. I didn't actually know too much about him. He was born River Jude Bottom.
Oh, Bottom. I didn't know that.
No.
River Bottom.
August 23, 1970. River Bottom. He was born in Madras, Oregon. He was the oldest of the whole Phoenix brood. After him was Rain, then Joaquim.
But he was known as something else. He was Leaf, wasn't he?
Liberty and Summer. Yeah, he was called Leaf originally, which I think all beautiful names. His parents were Arlen Dunetz and John Lee Bottom. He was named after the River of Life from Siddhartha, Herman Hesse novel. And his middle name was Jude after Hey Jude by the Beatles.
So they're hippies.
They were total hippies. When he was 2 years old, his hippie parents joined the Children of God cult.
Which is the worst fucking cult imaginable.
Worst fucking cult. They moved to Caracas in Venezuela to work as missionaries and fruit pickers. They basically had no fucking money, joined this cult. His dad, John Lee Bottom, was named the cult's Archbishop of Venezuela and Caribbean.
Wow.
So he was rising up the ranks. But, trigger warning here, I remember I told you they moved when he was 2. According to Vanity Fair, River was raped at the age of 4.
What?
Because there was a lot of weird sex stuff going on
there was.
at the Children of God
Yes,
cult.
there was. I know that.
And they were doing all just horrible things.
Fuck.
You know, the kids were all taught about sex really young. They were encouraged to, like, have sex with each other.
Oh, my God.
Age 2, age 3, age 4. Like, just fucked up shit. It's not a normal environment. And then in an interview with Details magazine in November 1991... he said he lost his virginity at age 4 to other children in the cult, but blocked it out.
Jesus.
But you don't lose your virginity at age 4. You're fucking raped. Yeah, it's fucked. Then in 2019, his brother Joaquim came out to the media and said, it was all a joke. River was just having a laugh, basically.
Really?
He said, quote, it was literally a joke because he was so tired of being asked ridiculous questions by the press.
Some joke.
Well, that's it. It's not a fucking joke, and I don't believe it. I don't believe that you come out as one of the biggest Hollywood stars and say I was raped to Vanity Fair.
As a joke.
You know, you don't say that bullshit. No. It's an unfunny joke. So I think there's some truth with this. And as you said, Children of God, fucking terrible cult. And actually River did say to Esquire magazine that they're disgusting. That cult was disgusting. They're ruining people's lives. This family, total hippies, they are as broke as you can get. You know, they would go wherever God sent them. So they're just nomads. They went to Mexico, Puerto Rico, Venezuela. It must have been hell on those kids because they had no money and they were just putting their kids in really unsafe environments. Because they had no money, the parents were like, right, kids, get out there on the streets of Caracas and perform. You got to bring some money in.
Wow.
These blonde little kids in Venezuela out on the street. River was playing the guitar. Rain would go around and like beg for coins because, you know, they're cute little kids singing in the street. The really awful thing is like this money was the only money the family had.
God.
So they were being pushed all the time to like get out there. It wasn't enough. And, you know, eventually the family, the Bottom family, they had enough. They left the Children of God cult.
Thank God.
Yeah, but then they turned to the Catholic Church in Caracas for help because they were like, we need to get the fuck out of here. So actually the church helped them get back to the USA. They actually took them to Florida on a cargo ship. So that's what the church organised for them. And when they got to Florida, they changed their name to Phoenix to symbolise
rising again.
The whole rising out of the ashes, new beginning. The Phoenix family moved to Gainesville in Florida, and it turns out that River's first passion was always music. You know, he loved playing guitar. There was a bit of a music scene going on. River was doing his music, and somehow, I guess because busking wasn't bringing the money in, his parents kind of pushed him and he got bit parts in movies because he was a good-looking kid. And Hollywood noticed him. He got a role in a movie called Explorers with Ethan Hawke, who was also just a kid starting out. And bit by bit, his family kept pushing him to do more acting because it was bringing in good money. And Hollywood were loving him because he's super talented.
Yeah.
And he's got the looks, you know, he's got everything. So he's doing loads of TV, loads of ads, and then he gets 2 big movie roles. This was in 1986 when movies still mattered. TV was considered B grade. You were not a star unless you were doing movies. And the big movies is where you got the money and the cachet. He was about to break Hollywood with Stand By Me and The Mosquito Coast.
Oh, yeah.
He was 15 when he made those movies, 16 when they came out. For anyone who doesn't know these movies, Stand By Me was directed by Rob Reiner, huge hit. And it had all-star cast, you know, River Phoenix, Corey Feldman, Jerry O'Connell, Will Wheaton, Kiefer Sutherland, John Cusack. It's a classic. And then The Mosquito Coast came out that year as well with Harrison Ford in it, Martha Plimpton. It was about a family that leaves the United States to find a better life in Central America.
Very apt.
Pretty close to the bone.
Based on a novel by Paul Theroux, Louis Theroux's father.
Really? Yes. Oh, wow. And then he did another movie called Running on Empty, which was apparently written by Jake Gyllenhaal's mum.
Oh.
And it's meant to be really, really good. Then he got a part which absolutely sent him stratospheric. He was playing the young Indiana Jones in Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade because he'd already been in a film with Harrison Ford.
Oh, yes.
So he is riding high in his career, but he's a hippie. And apparently he was just the sweetest guy. He wasn't into the fame. He was doing it to keep his family going because they literally come from nothing. And apparently he handed over all the money to the family. Yep. He just wanted to make his family safe. He bought a big ranch in Florida. I think actually the family still has it. I think the dad was living there for a long time. Just gave all the money to his brothers, sisters. He just wanted to follow music, but he just kept being pushed into acting. But he did, I think, want to be a rock star, and they all wanted to in, you know, the 90s. Yeah. But, you know, he was self-taught. He could sing. He was like, you know what, if I can't do music, I'm going to do something a bit more real. So, you know, it's 1991. It's like grunge, Seattle, whatever. And he does this art house movie with Keanu Reeves and Flea from Red Hot Chili Peppers called My Own Private Idaho.
Yeah.
Gus Van Sant film. All about gay prostitutes.
Yeah.
It was really full on. And apparently during the filming, Flea and River became really, really close friends. And River even has like a little cameo in Breaking the Girl video.
Okay.
Yeah, the song Give It Away has a part of the lyrics about him. And there are lyrics that go, there's a river, born to be a giver, keep you warm, won't let you shiver. His heart is never going to wither. Come on, everybody, time to deliver. That is apparently a little nod to River Phoenix.
That's nice. I didn't know that.
Yeah. So he's kind of part of this cool scene in LA and he's partying. He's also doing loads of drugs.
Those guys party hard.
Yeah. You know, you can't be in that scene and not get in on that. And, you know, he's doing this cool movie and that whole My Private Idaho experience actually starts to get a bit sketchy for him because he decides he really wants to get into the character of this gay rent boy addicted to drugs who is in love with Keanu Reeves' character, kind of to like go method and go deeper into this role. Yeah. He starts going to Vaseline Alley in Portland, finding real rent boys and talking to them about their experiences.
Oh, okay. Well, that's fair. That's research.
But he also does start taking heroin.
Oh, okay. Well, that's not so great, considering how addictive it can be.
I think he's smoking crack and, you know, it's like, it's just, he gets really fucked up. He's got money. So he's sort of separating himself from these rent boys and just thinking, no, I'm an actor getting into my role. But really,
it's okay.
He's just getting into the drugs. Yeah. You know, everyone around him starting to get worried about him, especially the people who rely on him because he's the breadwinner. Yeah. You know, he would get clean for chunks of time and then he'd get fucked up on drugs again.
Oh, no.
And he would just yo-yo. Yeah. And he was like apparently a regular like on Sunset Strip with all those rock clubs, you know, the Roxy, the Whiskey A Go-Go, the Viper Room. And in 1993, Johnny Depp bought the Viper Room and it was the hottest club in town. You know, it was like the go-to place for all early 90s kind of famous, you know, rich and famous Hollywood scene. And River was there all the time. People are starting to notice that he is just looking like shit.
He's always fucked up.
The drugs are taking a toll on his looks. Yeah. You know, word is he is like now a bit of a junkie. He's still getting roles, but he's not sort of hitting the heights of his earlier success. And then he signs on to do this movie called Dark Blood with Judy Davis.
Oh, Australian?
Yeah, and very highbrow actress.
Yes.
And she'd just been nominated for an Oscar for Husbands and Wives, which I think is a Woody Allen film. So he signs on for this film, but it's a bit shit. And I haven't seen it, Dark Blood, but I went to IMDb and the premise is, quote, dealing with nuclear testing and its deadly effects, this story portrays Boy, a young widower living in the desert on a nuclear testing site. Living as a hermit, he waits for the end of the world.
Oh, interesting. Did that film ever get made?
It did. It got made.
Oh.
And he spent 7 weeks filming in Utah in the desert for this. And apparently he was clean the whole time he was filming there because the production crew were like, right, you got to be fucking clean for this movie. But the production then moved to LA for 2 weeks to do some interior shots. And apparently River was quite nervous about going back to LA because he knew there was a lot of drugs and, you know, he would be back in the rock scene,
temptation,
seeing his friends. Yeah, but he had to go back. So he goes back to LA and that is when things go tits up.
Oh, no.
So, of course, like anything in Hollywood, there are different versions about what went down in the next few days. There's a guy called Bob Forrest who is apparently an ex-drug addict, and he reckons that River Phoenix spent those first few days back in LA doing loads of drugs with Red Hot Chili Peppers guitarist John Frusciante.
John Frusciante.
Yes.
Yeah, he was a terrible mess in those years, wasn't he?
Thing is, Frusciante was doing heroin and apparently River was doing coke. But there are other reports from actress Samantha Mathis, who was his girlfriend at the time, who said River was completely clean. You know, he'd come back from Utah. He was clean. So pin that because we are now going to October 30th, 1993. It's Saturday. Apparently River wakes up early because he's got to go to the Dark Blood film set. And he was kind of antsy that day because, look, some people say he was kind of had a drug hangover, but that's not confirmed. Other people say it's because Judy Davis fucking hated him.
Really?
Yep. She thought, you're not a real actor. Why am I on the set with this kid? You know, you are just all looks, no talent. He had to do a love scene with her that day and he did not want to do it.
A love scene?
Yeah, I know. She's an older lady.
Yeah.
He's 23. So.
And they're not getting on?
No, they are not getting on. He did not want to do it. And he was waiting around all day for this shoot because, you know, that's what happens on film sets. You just wait around and then you do your scene. So he was not into it.
Hanging around, waiting for the time that he had to...
Snog Judy Davis.
Snogging.
Yeah, this woman who...
Or actually snog.
Oh, you know, a sex scene. And so he's not into it. And he kind of hates her too. And they do this sex scene. Spoiler, but you know it's coming. It was basically the last scene of his life.
Oh.
It was a rough day on set. They did this love scene. He goes back to the hotel where he's staying on Sunset Strip. He's hanging out with his girlfriend, Samantha, and some mates and family because brother Joaquin and sister Rain had flown into LA to hang out with him because they knew he was back from Utah. Again, conflicting reports of River's state of mind that day. Some people say he'd been clean all day and had not planned to do any drugs that night because he was meant to get up on stage and play guitar with Johnny Depp at the Viper Room.
Oh, right.
And, you know, music is his passion. It was going to be this whole kind of like 90s supergroup thing. Johnny Depp was going to be on stage, River Phoenix, Flea, Gibby Haynes from Butthole Surface.
Fantastic.
And whoever else was there that night, they're all going to...
Whoever fancied it. It's a free-for-all.
Yeah, get up and jam with like all-star kind of, you know, going into Halloween.
Open mic.
Yeah, Halloween, open mic.
All dressed as the Munsters and the Addams Family.
And because it was the Saturday night, everyone was celebrating Halloween on the 30th, going into the 31st. It's Halloween Fest. And obviously, too, he wants to be seen as a musician. So this was kind of important to him. He was meant to go on around 9 o'clock at the Viper Room, but it didn't happen. And then just after midnight, and now we are October 31st, officially Halloween, Flea finds River in the club, in the Viper Room, and he's like, dude, I'm so sorry, man, but there are so many musicians here that want to jam. It's just not going to happen for you. River is kind of devastated.
Gutted.
Yeah, he's gutted because he really wanted to do it. He's had a shit day on set with Judy Davis.
Oh, having to kiss an old lady that hates him.
Yeah, he's been let down by his mates. He's not going to be part of this supergroup. So not a great day for him. And according to some reports, he was like, fuck it, I'm just going to get high. And they reckon he just went off to kind of try and find some drugs. They say he got some coke and went into the bathroom at the Viper Room. And then, and this is hearsay, not fact.
Okay, no suing.
No suing. There are reports that apparently John Frusciante gave River a speedball, which is coke and heroin.
Where did you hear this?
It's all over the internet.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, because River had been clean during the last 7 weeks on set in Utah, his drug tolerance was really low. And according to some people, he immediately, after that speedball, started throwing up in the toilets in the Viper Room.
Oh, no.
And people were coming in, trying to help, and someone was like, oh, just give him a Valium. That'll calm him down. Because his heart was apparently racing because of the speedball.
Oh, dear.
He was crashing, and, you know, he doesn't need that fucking Valium. He needs an ambulance.
Yes.
Somehow, he apparently managed to stumble out of the toilets and into the bar. But people were just like, oh, look at River. He's just a bit fucked up.
He's so fucked up.
So now he's in the crowd, throwing up and passing out. And finally, friends and family are like, I don't think he's okay. He's throwing up and passing out. He's not okay. So Rain and Joaquin drag him outside the club to try and get, you know, some fresh air. And this is, you know, way after midnight. Johnny Depp's fucking supergroup is on stage, but outside, River is on the street, outside the Viper Room, and he starts having seizures. He begins convulsing. His sister Rain is freaking out and trying to hold him down so he doesn't injure himself on the pavement.
Right.
You know, from all the seizures. But at this point, nobody knows what to do. I can tell you what to do. Call the fucking ambulance, you know, dial 911.
Exactly.
But look, Geordie, I think because he was famous, people were probably like, oh, fuck, what do we do? You know, we can't get the press
Thinking
involved.
about newspaper headlines, yes.
So no one is calling for help. But then finally, Joaquin finds a payphone because no mobiles, and he calls 911, and there is a recording of that 911 call out there on the internet. You know, to be fair to Joaquin, he's 19 at this point. I mean, they're all just kids. So he makes this call, and this is the transcript. It's my brother. He's having seizures at Sunset and Larrabee. Please come here. Dispatcher. Okay, calm down a little bit. What's the address? Where you need it? And he says, it's Sunset and Larrabee, the Viper Room. Dispatcher. Okay, what's the address there, you know? Joaquin's yelling, like, what's the address of the club? And the dispatcher's like, sir, calm down a little bit, okay? And he's like, I'm sorry, it's my brother. Please come. And the dispatcher's, I understand. Okay, calm down. And he's like, he's on the corner of Sunset and Larrabee. You can't miss it. Dispatcher's like, okay, it's your brother. Is he having a seizure? Yes. How old is he? 23. 23? Okay. You know what the telephone number is? Joaquin's like, you must get here. It's the Viper Room. And he's like, okay, the Viper Room. Joaquin's like, 8852 Sunset and Larrabee. Please come. Okay, I have the paramedics on the way, okay? Sir, stay on the line with me and calm down a little bit, okay? I'm calm, but please get here. Calm down, okay? If you can't be calm, give the phone to someone else. No, there's no one else around. Okay. And then Joaquin's like, I'm fine. And he's like, pay attention to me, okay? Joaquin's like, yes. And he said, I've got your address. He's like, okay, it's the Viper Room. You're calling from a payphone? Yes. What's the number on the payphone? And he tells the number, and then he's like, you've got to get here, please. And then Joaquin says, I think he had Valium or something. I don't know, but you must get here, please.
Okay.
The dispatcher is just like, where are you? Where are you? And he's like, keeps going like, I'm at the fucking Viper room.
What's wrong with this person? And why they keep saying calm down? It's just not helpful.
I know. And then apparently Rain was there, like, giving him mouth to mouth. The dispatcher is freaking out, going, if he's still breathing, stop giving him mouth to mouth.
Yeah.
And so it was all just a shit show.
Yeah.
Eventually, the ambulance does arrive. The paramedics get there. It's 4 minutes later. So pretty quick.
Pretty quick, yeah.
And Joaquim is on the phone the whole time. The seizures had stopped, but he's still lying on the sidewalk and he is breathing. So he is alive at this point.
Yeah.
But his breathing is really shallow. And then, Geordie, his heart goes into heart failure.
Oh, shit.
Yep. And the paramedics are not finding any heart activity. And now they start doing CPR. And they even put like an IV in and they start giving him drugs to try and resuscitate him. And of course, by this point, there is a fucking crowd outside the Viper room.
Oh, no.
Because, you know, it's Halloween, 1993. There are people as fucking ghouls and ghosts and, you know, like you said, people with like costumes, axes through their heads. And they're all standing around him.
How horrifying.
Word had spread now to inside the club that River is basically ODing on the pavement outside. Flea rushes out and gets in the ambulance with River and goes to the hospital with him. But River was pronounced dead at 1:51 a.m. He was 23.
Oh
the autopsy report said there were high concentrations of morphine and cocaine in River's blood, as well as other substances in smaller concentrations. And the cause of death was acute multiple drug intoxication. Just absolutely horrific. You know, can you imagine, like, you're seeing your brother dying before your eyes?
No, it's pretty rough. It's rough.
There are all rumours on the internet. You just look up John Frusciante and River Phoenix, you know, speedball.
Oh my God.
Some people say it was given to him deliberately, that there was beef, or other people say there wasn't any beef, but John Frusciante was just so fucked up that he didn't think of the effects.
He wasn't well.
And that he does sort of feel some guilt about River's death.
I bet he does, if indeed it was true.
Yeah, so happy fucking Halloween.
Wow, Michelle, that's a bright, sparky
Gone too soon.
end. Gone too soon, River Phoenix. But let's not forget him, because he was absolutely beautiful and he did have some great films.
R.I.P. River.
Not sure I want to see the Dark Blood one, though.
No, it looks a bit shit. And I can actually imagine Judy Davis being a bit mean.
Being a mean old
somehow.
witch, yeah. Did you know that she was married to... There's an Australian actor who was also big in the 80s, and I think he was in shows that I missed because I've lived here for 35 years in England. Colin Friel. Colin Friels or Colin
Friel?
Friel?
She was married to Colin Friel, wasn't she?
She is married to him.
Still?
I believe so. They were both in a TV show that I saw together as older people.
Yes. Okay. I think I know the one you're talking about. I'll put that on
a big ranch or something.
I'll have to put that as a link.
Do that.
I'll link that up on the Patreon.
Yes, do it.
Happy Halloween, eavesdroppers.
Happy Halloween, all you eavesdroppalopolis.
I hope you get lots of candy.
Yeah, I hope the candy comes thick and fast. I hope it's good stuff.
Yes.
Not the sort of stuff that we were just talking about in regards to River Phoenix, mind you. Lay off that. Don't do drugs.
Yeah, and I hope you get more treats than tricks tonight.
Yes, unless you fancy a trick or two. In the meantime, there's 3 things that you need to remember, wherever you are.
Whatever you do,
just keep eavesdropping.
Eavesdropping.